Hey everyone, it's Laurie from Second Wind, and I'm here today with Vince Dong. Many of you may know Vince from having attended a seminar or potentially gone to our principals meeting. And Vince is a consultant as well as a long-time CPA who works primarily with advertising agencies. And he can tell you a little bit more about himself when he begins his part of the conversation here. But we're here today because it's very important that we stay in touch with our member agencies during this difficult time. And, you know, we've been trying to disseminate as much information as possible to help you along dealing with this crisis, whether it's with respects to employees or financials or new business or working remotely, lots of topics that we are all dealing with today during this very difficult time. And I thought it was important that we get a financial professional's perspective on really some things that you should be doing, on what he is seeing, some actions you can take, some things that you should consider with respects to planning. So I've invited Vince to obviously come and have this dialogue with me. So we're going to talk a little bit about these things. And Vince, if you have a moment, if you would just introduce yourself, and then I'd like you to start off, if you can, by maybe telling us what you're really seeing out there among the agencies that you're working with.
Thanks, Laurie. I'll just be as brief as possible regarding my introduction. I've been in the industry for 33 years. I've worked with an agency. I worked as a head finance guy of an agency. And for the last 30 years, I have been all over the North American geographical market to visit one agency after the next. My focus with my consultations has to do with improving agency operations, improving finance and accounting reporting, and also maximizing the software use of an ad agency's company's software usage. What are we seeing in the marketplace right now? We are seeing complete states of panic. We are hearing from agencies that their clients are frozen and programs are completely put on hold. And where I have tried to tell them all is to take it one day at a time, but essentially go into a 90-day hurry-up offense plan. Mm-hmm. And never before has the accounting and finance departments been more important moving forward, because bills have to be paid, things have to be collected from. The show must go on.
Yes.
And the last thing an agency wants to do is close its doors in this situation we're in right now.
Agreed. So you're working with your clients in terms of assessing each agency individually, and you had talked a little bit with me prior about trying to forecast, but that's limited these days to maybe a 30, 60, 90-day outlook. Just talk a little bit about how you're advising them in terms of what they should be doing from that perspective.
During the February 2020 Owners Conference that you hosted, we talked about controllable versus uncontrollable. And so what you have to absolutely do is get a handle on your controllable issues. And so where I've directly gone to clients is, and I'm doing this backwards, let's determine the absolute amount of money you have to spend on salaries, benefits, contract labor, and overheads each and every month. How do you do that? Look back on what you spent in March, February, January, particularly December and November of last year. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, there would be large bonuses paid last Christmas, which you're not going to have to worry about for April, May, and June. In doing so, then you'll know what your monthly, as we call it in the industry, nut is.
Yes.
The second thing after that is we need to know as quickly as possible what we truly will be collecting from our clients over the next 3 months. And that's where agencies with far fewer clients can move quicker on that, but agencies with dozens and dozens and dozens of clients and tons of receivables, they're just going to have to spend a bit more time on that in the meantime. That essentially sets up part of the cash flow. We all have agencies that have media and production, and we cannot not pay these vendors. We also don't want to take that media money or the production money that we've particularly collected in advance of paying the vendors and using that money to pay for our salaries and our overheads.
Right.
In conjunction with all of that, this is a perfect time to take a look at your salary, contract labor, benefit costs as a percentage of your AGI each and every month for the last 6 months to see if even your people costs are in line. And it's an opportunity for you to say, this is a great time if our numbers are out of skew against the 50, 30, 20 ratio within the industry to reduce our salaries accordingly.
Yeah.
When we know what our monthly nut is, we're also going to be able to take a look at our balance sheet and take a hard look at our free cash. And what I mean free cash is subtract the media money, subtract the production money. For those of you that are really good about managing your bank accounts, I've seen some agencies actually set aside separate bank accounts where they are essentially holding money in trust for their clients and only having the transfer of earned money into their operating account so that they know what their true free cash is. But what's key is then you'll determine how much free cash you've got to live for the next 90 days.
Okay.
And if there are agencies that can sit there and go, okay, we're good for 6 months, I still implore you to say, take a look at your overheads. See what you can defer, see what you can delay, see what you can put a hold on everything.
Right.
For the very reason to hold on to your staff as much as possible, because they certainly are going to need to be around after this is all over with.
Yes.
And where I'm moving away from exact salary cuts, et cetera, those are the agencies that have got that free cash that can last for 3, 6, 9 months ahead of time. On the flip side, Laurie, you're going to have agencies that just don't have the cash.
Correct.
And they're going to be in a bit of a pickle. They may certainly have to rely on a line of credit if they can get a line of credit or if they have a pre-existing line of credit. And that's a matter of taking a look at the cash flow as well to see whether they're going to completely use the line of credit or just marginally tip into the line of credit. I don't, for today, recommend pushing out past July the 1st because we truly don't have a good feeling about what's going to be happening after the 30th of June. So I'm doing this hurry-up offense for the next 90 days. And perhaps we'll have another session, Laurie, in a month, maybe 6 weeks from now to say, okay, now that this 90 days is over with, what do we do from a financing standpoint in the next 90 days?
Yes.
For example, July 1st until September 30th. So when all else fails and the numbers are simply just not matching up and we're essentially out of cash by May, you have no other choice but to have salary cuts across the board.
Right.
I'm not in favor necessarily of terminations because if the clients are there and they've simply just put a hold on things, we're still going to need to service the clients after this is all over with.
Agreed.
And if we've let that person go,
yes,
it's not going to be so easy to resurrect that person again because they will not forget what had happened to them. So I would certainly move to the next phase of where can we watch our cash with salary cuts. And I will also say if there are 1 or 2 or 3 owners involved and they are essentially taking the lion's share of salaries or distributions, they should take the greatest reduction. If they are the ones receiving the greatest benefit each and every year when the company is profitable, they should take the same level of risks 180 degrees around. So from there, certainly larger percentage salary cuts to the executives, and then the next level down would be salary cuts to the non-executives, the rest of the staff. Okay, does that make sense to you, Laurie?
It makes sense, and it really sounds like this is, at this point, I think with the uncertainty that we're all living with on a daily basis, not really understanding how long this crisis is going to be active, how long we're going to be facing this. This really feels like it's a moving target. So particularly from a financial perspective. And I feel like, we obviously advise agency owners, they need to be looking at those statements every month. They need to make sure they have everything closed within a couple of days by the end of the month. But it seems to me that this really needs to be at a much higher frequency right now.
Yeah, and I'll take it even further than that. We're not talking about just closing month ends each and every month, because that's the reporting side.
Right.
Every agency that I'm working right now is watching their cash every 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't pay attention to that, you're not going to get yourself through the 90 days in the meantime.
Right.
Where I'm also seeing this is the question of, what do we say to our staff?
Right.
Because certainly if I was an employee of an agency and the owner said nothing to me, I would constantly go in and go, will I have a job today?
Correct.
Will I have a job next Monday? So there has to be a consistency in the way in which particularly communication agencies communicate internally to their staff.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, you owe it to the staff members, particularly at this time, at this juncture in our crazy world, to take that leadership position, to be able to come out with reasonable information as well as credible information. Mm-hmm. And if you say to the staff, our client receipts are down 65%, that will help the agency staff members understand something's going to be happening, and if it's a matter of taking a 10, 20, or 25% salary cut for a period of time, I would also then, in that same communication, state to them, we're going to do this 3 months at a time. So everybody needs to participate in a reduction over the next 90 days. We hope you understand, but the good news is you're holding your job.
Yes.
And in order to have all of us work together, we do still expect you to work the full week. Please bear with us.
Yes.
And coupled with, we as owners or the finance people have taken every possible application as quickly as possible to shove it into the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah.
But we don't know when we are going to be approved, processed, or actually in receipt of that great big check from the government. So we are going on the basis that we are not going to be seeing that money any time soon.
Yes, and the application process, from what I understand, is not arduous, but it will take a little bit of time, and I think time is of the essence. So the sooner that they can think about taking advantage of some of these opportunities, because I think there is a limited amount of help that is going to be distributed. So, it is a little bit of first come, first serve. So you got to get yourself in line and take those steps, even if you feel that you're in a somewhat relatively good position now. Things can change almost overnight. Just because clients say they're going to be remitting doesn't mean that they will if things change dramatically in the next week. So I think we have to take advantage of obviously all the opportunities that are out there. And I think in terms of the transparency that you're talking about, there is no way that agency owners can realistically avoid these conversations with their people. It's all around us. The news of unemployment, the news of the economy, the agency that is not affected by this in some way is a unicorn. I just can't imagine that it's out there. So I think the transparency issue is very important in embracing employees and letting them know what is happening. And to your point about layoffs, as a second or third remedial action versus haircuts, as you call them, across the top, to try to find and restaff quickly after all this is over is difficult. Agencies spend a lot of money and a lot of time finding the right people, so let's try to keep them in place by doing other things first.
Yeah. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there will be agencies that just don't have the cash flow. They go month to month, and notwithstanding the fact that they've got to apply for government funding to keep going,
right.
I've asked them to look hard and deep into their own personal finances. Those agency owners that have been around for a long time do have savings, and the question is, okay, I may or may not have a line of credit, but to what extent do I put money back into the company,
Yes.
or do I just simply fold the tent in the meantime? And
Yes.
part of that is financial, part of that is philosophical, part of that is a gamble. And it's not like they're making a ton of money in the stock market right now, although they probably have lost a third of their investment value equally in the stock market. So, I mean, it's a bit of a hit at the same time. They used to have $100 in the investment account. They now have $67, and Vince is saying, you mind dumping that $67 into your agency, please? So there is a bigger call to take a hard look at your own agency to say, this is essentially an investment now, not just an ad agency.
Right.
And do I continue to invest in this on a very wise basis, or is it healthy enough to manage it by itself so that I don't have to continue to put money into this organization, and look at it from that perspective instead of just seeking out work from clients, worrying about new business, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and
Does that make sense?
It does, and I have spoken with a number who have mentioned that in terms of I may have to put some of my own personal wealth into the business, invest in the business personally. And I guess my only question about that in terms of the pecking order of actions that we would take, does that rank higher on the list, or does that come a little bit ways down the road?
The answer depends on the factors that I was speaking about earlier. So let's take away the agencies that have enough cash flow for the next 6 to 9 months. They don't really need to put their own money into the organization. Secondly, if an agency doesn't have a ton of capital to begin with, is it a healthy agency? And is the owner essentially just stripping out the money from a distribution standpoint because they have a lifestyle they want to continue, or they've got a desire to just play with the stock market, or they have a great big house that they just have to do a renovation for? So a lot of the stuff will affect their personal lives as well. Laurie, you and I have run into countless lifestyle ad agencies. And no longer is the owner of the agency going to be burdened with just looking at keeping the agency going. The owner now has to take a look at his or her lifestyle. And no doubt that person's going to have to cut back accordingly. Well, there is a spin-off on that, or a positive spin-off on that. We cut back on the lifestyle, we don't take as much money out of the agency.
Right.
So if that's going to be the case, then we may not need to immediately dump cash into the agency. And it all depends on a number of factors. And I haven't seen one agency owner say, I'm stepping up, because in most cases I've got agencies with lines of credit, which are personally guaranteed anyway.
Yes. Okay. Makes sense. I think that's some great topics and some great advice that we covered. Do you have any final words of advice, or any steps that people should be taking that we haven't discussed that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a couple of things. This is a stressful time for everyone.
Yes.
I would add that it is probably more stressful for owners, because they're the ones that are self-employed. They have to watch over their sheep. They have to watch over their flock. They also have to watch over themselves. They're in a most unique situation. So with all of the things that are happening right now, agencies that I'm dealing with that have executive committees call these meetings much sooner than once a week. And they go, here's where we are at. We've done all of this thinking, we being the owner of the company.
Right.
It would be not a bad idea, equally prudent, for the executive committee to render their comments, what they see in the agency. If it means to furlough somebody, if it means to cut back on an entire department's salary, if it means to stop doing something that we make absolutely no money with, and it's something that the owner had not even thought about, it's worthy of bringing to the table.
Yes.
And where am I going with this second last piece of advice? If the other staff members can also participate in the survival of the agency with their own innovative ideas, why not bring them to the table to the owner?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
My very last piece of advice, particularly for owners, it's not going to be easy to stay the course, to stay calm, because each and every day right now is a different day.
Yes.
And I haven't run into one agency that said, oh, we got through last week, piece of cake, no problems. Every agency is seeing something different every day.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it personally every day.
Yeah, me too.
No matter what happens in that regard, though, you've got to stay the course, stay calm, cooler heads will prevail, and strangely enough, when you do have a cooler head, you're able to think that much more calmly.
Agreed. 100%. So, I mean, when times are not in crisis, we maintain our composure and make good, well thought out decisions based on information. When we're feeling comfortable, we need to do the same in these times when we're not feeling so comfortable, that we're not sure what the future is holding. 100% agree. Cooler heads will prevail. So I think that's a great last piece of advice. And I know there is much more that you can potentially share with agencies, and you and I will get together again in short order to do a second one of these with maybe some additional advice as things continue to unfold. But I really appreciate you being here today. As always, it's a pleasure to hear your perspective and your advice, and I know that it's very well taken and people implement it. So thank you, and let's get in touch soon, and you be safe and healthy and stay inside and wash your hands and do everything you're supposed to do.
I have a long association with Second Wind, and I'm grateful for our time today.
Yes.
As I care deeply for each and every ad agency that is a member of Second Wind.
Yes, absolutely. And my sentiments are 100% the same. So Vince, appreciate it again. I will talk to you soon, and have a great rest of the day.
Okay, take care, Laurie.
All right. Thanks, Vince.
Bye.
Bye.